Chapter 1334 Activate the 10,000 Spirit Saint. The nomological domain begins to show its might. It's your turn now. Zhou Fight said. In the next second, the 36 Zhou Fight clones teleported to the surroundings of the 6 skeleton god lords. The 6 spacetime clones began to gang up on a skeleton god lord. The scene looked quite intense. The surrounding skeleton true god tiers and god spirits were dumbfounded when they saw the battle between the 36 supremacies. They naturally knew how powerful a master god tier existence was. It was a power that could not be resisted at all. In a single Zhou fight, they would have to mobilize 6 skeleton god lords to surround and attack the other party, but they still could not take him down. A total of 36 Zhou fights had appeared. What was the point of fighting? The morale of these skeleton god lord spirits immediately plummeted. As for the skeletal soldiers, they didn't understand what those 36 master god tier masters meant. However, when they saw their master god tier being beaten up, they immediately felt depressed. The outcome of a top-notch battle could determine the outcome of the entire battlefield. Even though their current military strength far exceeded that of the mortal empire, once the master god tiers on their side were defeated, the numerical advantage that they were so proud of was just a joke in front of the enemy master gods. They silently prayed in their hearts that their master god tier would win. At the same time, inside the Cosmos Emperor, Zhou Fight raised his right hand to the two sides fighting. 10,000 Spirit Saint. Activate. Invisible ripples instantly spread in all directions with the palm as the center and quickly enveloped the entire battlefield. A text notification appeared. Prompt: you have activated your mythical tier unique Lord talent, 10,000 Spirit Saint. All spirits see you as a supreme saint and long to follow you. Lord talent notification 1. There are 3 capital units in 1560, 154, 087, 255, 668 Black Iron Tier Skeleton Clan Soldiers, 1 capital unit and 1,502,512,587,403,652 Green Bronze Tier Skeleton Clan Soldiers. 6,250,689,215,404,874 White Silver Tier Skeleton Clan Soldiers. 10,262,078,142,326 Legendary Tier Skeleton Clan Soldiers, 1,022,560 Low Tier Deity Level Skeleton Clan God Spirits, 852,656 Mid-Tier Deity Level Skeleton Clan God Spirits, 536,420 High-Tier Deity Level Skeleton Clan God Spirits, 512 Skeleton Clan True Gods, and 3 Skeleton Clan Master Gods who have voluntarily separated from their Lord forces and become your loyal followers. Lord Talent Notification 2, you have obtained a Spellcaster, Master God Tier Elementary Grade. Zhou Marshall couldn't help but be shocked after reading it. Good God! The 10,000 Spirit Saint had actually directly instigated the Insight defection of 5 capital units and 1,510,515,063,931,540 skeleton soldiers, 2,411,636 skeleton god spirits, 512 skeleton true gods, and 3 skeleton god lords. Didn't this mean that the skeleton race had brought at least 10 capital units of soldiers to attack my mortal empire? You really think highly of me. The skeleton clan has always been famous for their sea of soldiers strategy. It's really better to see than to hear. Zhou Marshall shook his head. Then, he couldn't help but laugh. The sea of soldiers was good. Lords of other races might be afraid of the sea of soldiers strategy. However, he, who had the 10,000 Spirit Saint, couldn't wait for the enemy to have as many soldiers as possible. The first thing he did was to cause trouble for the skeleton race. It was indeed the right choice. Otherwise, if he used the 10,000 Spirit Saint on other races and encountered the skeleton race again, he would regret it to death when he saw that he had so many soldiers and god spirits. Then, he didn't hesitate and immediately got the skeleton soldiers and god spirits who had instigated the insight defection to counterattack their comrades. This internal strife immediately caused the originally unstable army of the skeleton race to be in complete chaos. Originally, the skeleton army could suppress more than 3,000 trillion soldiers of the mortal empire with the advantage of numbers of the 10 capital units. However, after this internal strife, the advantages and disadvantages were reversed, causing the scales of victory on the battlefield to lean towards the mortal empire. What's going on? When the skeleton race's master god tier saw the internal battle below, his eyes could not help but widen. If they did not handle this civil war well, it was very likely that they would all lose here. If it was an ordinary defeat, they would not care. However, they had already used more than half of their race's foundation in order to obtain Venus. Especially in terms of master gods. They had even brought all the master gods of the skeleton race with them. If all of them died here, it would almost mean that the skeleton race would fall from a high-level bloodline race to a medium-level bloodline race. That was equivalent to them personally bringing the skeleton clan into the abyss. At the thought of this, they were instantly terrified. They could not accept such a future. At this moment, they did not even think about racial divine artifacts. They only wanted to protect their race's heritage and future. Fight with all your might. Bring out whatever tricks you have. Then find an opportunity to escape. Even if we can't obtain Venus, don't let all the master god tiers of our race die here. The leading skeleton emperor shouted. Yes. The 3 skeletal god lords immediately responded. In the following second. Boom. 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 At this moment, the 3 master gods activated their nomological domains almost at the same time. Under the superimposition of their master god tier nomological domains, the white bones that filled the sky covered the starry sky, turning this starry sky into a terrifying white bone realm. Boom! Zhou Fight and all the spacetime clones instantly felt their strength being suppressed. Now, they could only unleash about 40% of their peak strength. This was the effect of the 3 master god tiers working collectively to suppress the laws. At this moment, spatial ripples spread out from each time clone. Following that, the bodies of the 36 time clones slowly turned transparent before disappearing into the ripples. The 3 master gods of the skeleton clan were stunned when they saw this. Then, they were overjoyed. This guy's time technique has reached its limit. Hurry! Let's attack together and destroy the Azure Emperor. Don't let him have any time to react, lest he uses any strange methods. The skeleton emperor instantly ordered. The other 2 master gods obeyed without hesitation. Then, they suppressed Zhou Fight's main body with their nomological domains. Zhou smiled, sensing the terrifying pressure. He took a deep breath and used the newly comprehended Lord Law skill as he sent a message to the other 3 master god tiers of the skeleton tribe who had been incited by insight defection, telling them not to take action. All the land in the world belongs to the king. Boom! A lord's nomological domain that covered tens of thousands of light years instantly spread out. The 3 master gods of the skeleton clan and all the soldiers from both sides were enveloped in the blink of an eye. This nomological domain was filled with mountains, rivers, stars, and various phantoms. Upon closer inspection, one could even faintly make out the imperial capital of the Blazing Sun Empire, right in the center of this domain of laws. The law domain created by all the land in the world belongs to the king as a Lord Law skill displayed a law domain phenomenon. It was shockingly the projection of the Blazing Sun Empire's territory. After Zhou Fight activated his nomological domain, the countenances of the 3 master god tier experts changed. This was because they were shocked to discover that as Emperor Qin activated his nomological domain, their respective nomological domains were greatly suppressed. In less than 2 to 3 seconds, their nomological domain could not withstand the suppression of Azure Emperor's nomological domain and was directly shattered, causing the 3 skeleton Lord Gods to suffer considerable injuries from the backlash of the smashed nomological domain. Chapter 1335, Aggrieved Zhou Fight. Please continue reading on. What kind of law domain is this? All the Master Gods said in shock. My strength has been suppressed by 80%. Could this be a regal nomological domain? The skeleton monarch's expression kept changing. In the end, it said in a gloomy tone. He was a top-notch Master God tier advanced grade. Now, his strength had been suppressed by 80%. The current him could at most be compared to Master God tier intermediate grade God spirit. He might not even be comparable to an ordinary Master God tier intermediate grade God spirit. This kind of domain suppression was too terrifying. It was simply unheard of. Other than the regal domain, I can't think of any nomological domain that can suppress our nomological domain to this extent as soon as it appears. The Emperor's guess should be correct. I once fought with a Master God tier who specialized in domain laws. At that time, even if the other party used domain laws, I didn't feel such a huge suppression from the other party's domain. This should indeed be a regal nomological domain. This Azure Emperor is actually the same as that of the common people's regal. He's actually a god who walks the regal laws. Furthermore, he allowed he to grow to the Master God tier level. Such an existence is even closer to the Supreme God realm than top-notch Master God tiers like the 10 Master God tiers. Why are we so unlucky to actually encounter them? The human race actually has 2 regal level owners, common people's regal and Azure Emperor regal, at the same time. How unfair is fate to favor the human race so much? They were either in disbelief or indignant. Zhou Fight did not attack them. He only looked at them quietly and said after a while, "This emperor will say it again. It's not easy for you to cultivate. Those who surrender will not be killed. This emperor will also leave behind the inheritance of your race in my empire. One won't let your race be wiped out." After a few seconds of silence, the skeleton emperor suddenly sneered. "Ever since the birth of the life and death rule, our skeleton race has been born together with the law. We are one of the oldest and most powerful races in the universe. For countless years, we have lost and even been exterminated, but we have never surrendered. You want us to surrender? Dream on. Attack together. We are still 3 Master Gods even if we only have 20% of our strength left. He is only 1 Master God even with the enhancement of the Azure Emperor's domain. 3 against 1, we have the advantage. Kill." At the end, the skeleton emperor roared and charged at Zhou Fight with its Master God tier bone spear. The other skeleton Master Gods also felt that it made sense, so they attacked Zhou together again. Haha, good timing. Zhou Fight was Zhou's main battle avatar to begin with. He loved to fight the most in his life. When he saw this situation, how could he have any fear? Instead, he became even more excited, and the fighting spirit in his eyes intensified. He held the Xian Yuan divine sword and actually turned into a stream of light that rushed straight towards the skeleton emperor, going to face 3 of them head-on. Arrogant. The skeleton monarch sneered and clashed with him without hesitation. In the next moment, he only felt an unstoppable and terrifying force coming from the sword. He was sent flying 4 to 5 light years away before he could react. Crack! The skeleton emperor raised its trembling arm that was holding the bone spear. His diamond skeletal arm suddenly turned into dust before dissipating into the cosmos. At the same time, he also felt that his divine spark and the source of his will had been impacted by a terrifying force, causing his divine spark to dim and his will to dissipate. Top Master God tier level power. He even mastered strength breaks all laws and strength begets all techniques. He has actually taken the Master God tier path of the law of strength. Even the Master God tier of the law of strength of the Titan God race is probably only so. For the first time, a terrifying thought appeared in the Skeleton Emperor's mind. Moreover, hadn't this human Azure Emperor just advanced to the Master God tier advance grade? How could he be so strong? Furthermore, he had so many trump cards and means. He even thought that the Azure Emperor was not a newly promoted Master God tier, but a veteran Master God tier. No, we still have to escape. I can't defeat him, but I can't die in his hands. The Skeleton Emperor turned around and wanted to escape. However, in the next second, the scenery around him changed. Then, he realized that he had already arrived not far from Zhou Fight. Don't leave since you're already here. Zhou Fight said with a faint smile. Then, he charged at the Skeleton Emperor again. When the other Master Gods saw this, they rushed forward to block Zhou Fight from reaching the Skeleton Emperor. However, under Zhou Fight's terrifying strength, they were sent flying one by one. In the blink of an eye, Zhou Fight arrived in front of the Skeleton Emperor again and slashed down. This strike contained the power of the myriad method star palm. In the eyes of the Skeleton Imperial Monarch, this sword contained all the laws of the heavens within it, and it was like the sword of the Heaven Tao. He would only die if he chose to take it head-on. A purple cloth suddenly appeared in front of the Skeleton Emperor under immense danger. The purple cloth looked ordinary, but as soon as it appeared, it blocked Zhou Fight's line of sight, preventing him from seeing the Skeleton Emperor behind the purple cloth. Zhou Fight was shocked. It had to be known that he was currently in his own nomological domain. He was the absolute ruler in the domain. How could he not see the scene behind a mere piece of cloth? This only proved one thing. This cloth was a treasure, and it was at least a supreme god realm treasure. Otherwise, it would be impossible to isolate his perception as a top Master God tier. At this moment, the purple cloth slowly turned transparent before completely disappearing. The Skeleton Emperor was no longer there. Zhou Fight frowned slightly. He actually managed to escape. What a pity, if not for the fact that he was in an active universe and could not directly use the various Supreme God Realm treasures in the first treasure vault, not to mention one mere purple cloth. Even a dozen of them wouldn't be able to save the Skeleton Emperor's life. As for the Skeleton Emperor having a Supreme God Realm treasure, he was naturally not surprised. He was the patriarch of a high-level bloodline race and was not much inferior to the Titan God race after all. It was too normal for a race of this level to have a few Supreme God Realm treasures. Then, he turned around and looked at the two remaining Skeleton Master God tier, who were in a daze. The corners of his mouth curled into an arrogant and wanton smile. I saw your patriarch abandon you and escape alone. Then what's next? It's your turn to die. As soon as Zhou Fight finished speaking, he immediately appeared in front of a Skeleton Master God. This Master God tier was the only Master God tier intermediate grade Skeleton Master God tier among them. He was shocked when he saw Zhou Fight appear in front of him. Even his patriarch had fled. What else could he do? Thinking of this, he put down his weapon without hesitation and raised his hands. I surrender. Huh? Zhou Fight looked at him in boredom before letting it go. He was about to attack the last Skeleton Master God. I surrender too. The last Skeleton Master God was also sensible. He immediately surrendered when he saw this scene. Zhou Fight felt that he had nowhere to vent his strength. This was the first time he felt so aggrieved. Can't you let me have a good fight? Chapter 1336 The Radiant Angel Race. Please continue reading on. Zhou Fight looked calmly at the 5 skeleton god lords in front of him. The Skeleton Emperor, who was the patriarch of the Skeleton clan, probably didn't expect this either. Not only did their attempt to obtain the race's divine artifact, Venus, fail, they even lost 5 of their 6 master gods. Even though he had escaped the clutches of the Azure Emperor, He had also lost a supreme god realm treasure because of this. It was a huge loss. From now on, even if the skeleton race did not fall from a high-level bloodline race, they would probably become the weakest among the high-level bloodline races. The 5 of you, let your soldiers surrender. Can you do that? Zhou Feit asked. Your Majesty. I'm afraid that's a little difficult. The skeleton emperor who escaped has a race divine artifact, the skeleton ancestral god scepter, that can command all the skeleton clan. One of the master god tier advanced grade skeleton god lord, said awkwardly. Only a skeleton god lord can barely escape the control of that race divine artifact. The skeleton soldiers below the true god tier will listen to the orders of the owner of the skeleton ancestral god scepter. Before he left, he probably used the race's divine artifact to give the order for the skeleton race to fight to the death. That's why our clansmen continue to fight against your Majesty's army. Under the control of that racial divine artifact, these clansmen will never surrender unless they die in battle. You think so? Zhou Feit could not help but feel that it was a pity. Right now, there were at least 2 or 3 more capital units that had not been incited by his 10,000 spirit saint to become incite defection. If these skeletons could surrender, the strength of his faction would increase further. It was a pity that it didn't work. However, Zhou Feit soon figured it out. Since they could not all be taken down by the 10,000 spirit saint, then, the remaining skeleton soldiers would all become food for the advancement of his soldiers. It just so happened that he had many new recruits under him, so he lacked the promotion energy needed to advance. These 2 or 3 capital unit skeleton soldiers, in addition to those skeleton god spirits and skeleton true god tier, were enough to raise the strength of his soldiers to another level. Go. Help the soldiers under this emperor fight. Zhou Feit said. Yes, your Majesty. The 5 skeleton god lords respectfully said. Then, they turned to look at their former clansmen. They looked at them, and a look of pity flashed in their eyes. However, this look of pity quickly turned cold. Now, they were already on the Blazing Sun Empire's side. Any hostile faction that dared to attack the Blazing Sun Empire was their enemy, even if these enemies were their former clansmen. Kill. In any case, the skeleton race would not be destroyed because of the deaths of these low-level soldiers and god spirits. As long as Master God tier skeletons like them were still alive, their skeleton clan's race inheritance and race would not be cut off in the future. At the thought of this, they activated their respective Master God tier domains and charged at the skeleton soldiers and skeleton god spirits without any hesitation. The 5 skeleton god lords unleashed their nomological domains at the same time and instantly covered the entire battlefield, suppressing all the skeleton soldiers and skeleton god spirits on the battlefield. Under the suppression of the Master God tier nomological domain, the skeleton true god tier could only maintain 80% of its combat power. The skeleton god spirit could only maintain 50% of its combat power. The skeleton soldiers who were not god spirits were the most miserable. They could barely maintain 20% of their combat power. The skeleton army, which was already powerless to resist the Blazing Sun Empire's army, showed signs of defeat under this powerful suppression. They looked up in a daze as they fought and fled, wanting to see where the suppression came from. Then, they saw the 5 figures that they were unusually familiar with. It was their ancestor. At first, they looked very excited because their ancestor had defeated the Azure Emperor to save them. However, their expressions soon became terrified. Why is the ancestor killing us? Shouldn't they help us? Why, ancestor? The skeleton soldiers and god spirits did not understand. However, their doubts, shock, and indignation were destined not to cause any emotional fluctuations in the 5 skeleton god lords. They only activated their nomological domain and wantonly crushed the skeleton soldiers and god spirits in the nomological domain. With a single thought, tens of billions of skeleton soldiers would die in their domain. Coupled with the joint siege of the Blazing Sun Empire's warriors and god spirits, the remaining skeleton soldiers and skeleton god spirits began to decrease at a visible speed. Another half an hour passed, under the absolute advantage of military strength and high-end combat strength, the surviving skeleton soldiers and god spirits who were still resisting were finally destroyed. Then, under Zero's control, a total of 10 Cosmos Emperors moved out together, absorbing all the loots on the entire battlefield into the internal world of Cosmos Emperor. Then, the army of the Blazing Sun Empire boarded Cosmos Emperor without hesitation and left. Not long after they left, a total of 10 million divine warships emitting resplendent holy light sailed over from the depths of the starry sky and quickly arrived at the battlefield that had already been cleaned up. After these Radiant Angel Race ships stopped, a Radiant Angel Race with 16 wings and a Master God Tier aura flew out from the lead Radiant Angel Race ship. Behind him were 114 winged True God Tier Radiant Angel Race members. After he arrived at the battlefield, he immediately scattered in all directions to search for traces left behind on the battlefield. Soon, they returned and reported the results to the Master God Tier Radiant Angel Race. Your Excellency Kauna. Not long ago, there was a war that covered an estimated distance of thousands of light-years. The total number of troops fighting on both sides has already exceeded 10 capital units. Moreover, there are master gods fighting. However, there shouldn't be any master gods that have died. Judging from the dense undead divine power in the war environment, one of the two parties in the war should be our alliance army, the skeleton race's army. As for the other side, there's a high chance that it's the Lord's faction where the Azure Emperor is. The result of the war was a huge defeat for the skeleton race. The Lord faction of the Azure Emperor won. Speaking of this result, the Radiant Angel race who was in charge of reporting couldn't hide his shock. The Master God Radiant Angel race Kauna frowned slightly. Clearly, this outcome far exceeded his expectations. A Lord faction whose strongest expert was only a true God tier, had actually defeated or even annihilated a high-level bloodline race, the skeleton race. How did they gather information? This was completely inconsistent with the power of the mortal empire that they had gathered. At this moment, he looked at the light bracelet on his wrist. Golden words appeared on it. After he finished reading, he calmly said, "There's no need to investigate. The skeleton emperor just sent news. Among the racial forces brought by him only, he remains as a god. The surviving troops and god spirits were all destroyed by the Azure Emperor." After he finished speaking, he took a deep breath. We have to reevaluate our opponent, Azure Emperor. He is definitely not inferior to the Lord of the Common People's Regal. Is it possible that the Azure Emperor is the Common People's Regal? A Radiant Angel race true god tier could not help but ask. Didn't you hear the latest? The main force of the Common People's Regal is on the High Continent. They just fought with the Titan God race yesterday and destroyed the entire Titan God race. How can he have extra troops to show off in the universe? Kauna glanced at him and mentioned calmly. Then where is the Common People's Regal? Could it be that he isn't participating in this Lord's event? Another Radiant Angel race true god tier asked curiously. Nothing is certain, Kauna said. However, we can't underestimate them just because we can't see them moving around in the universe. Common People's Regal is very good at forbearing and keeping a low profile. He is so unknown now. He must be creating something big. We have to be vigilant at all times and find the other party to destroy the Lord faction in the other party's active universe. All the Radiant Angel race members nodded. Let's go back. We need to contact our other allies and discuss how to deal with the Azure Emperor. This Azure Emperor is no longer someone a high-level bloodline species can deal with. Kauna said. Yes. The Radiant Angel race true god tier mentioned respectfully. Then, he returned to the light god warship with Kauna and left together. Chapter 1337, War Summary. Ranking. Please continue reading on at night, in the shrine of the blazing sun imperial capital. Zhou was looking at the battle report in front of him. Over the entire day, Zhou and Zhou Zhan had eliminated a total of more than 21,000 trillion soldiers, more than 11 million god spirits, and more than 5,000 true god tier. He obtained tens of trillions of mist cores, origin crystals, skill books, equipment, and basic materials. There were also 3,154,500,741,510 green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments. 2,545 legendary tier and below Scarlet Lord Talent spheres and a large number of other Lord Talent crystal fragments. 5,125. 4 billion 10 million units of divine crystals from low tier to high tier deity level. More than 3 billion units of time elemental gems. More than 4 billion units of spatial elemental gems. 82,316,500 true god tier divine crystals. 4,083,695 master god tier divine crystals. More than 6,900,741,000,000 lesser to high tier deity level divine artifacts. 4,520,000 true god tier divine artifacts. 695 master god tier divine artifacts. There were a total of about 2 trillion divine spark fragments, god tier medicinal herbs, god tier ingredients, god tier ores, god tier blueprints, and other treasures. 84,502,302 master god tier herbs, god tier ingredients, god tier ores, god tier blueprints, and other treasures. Zhou nodded slightly after reading it. The gains from defeating the Titan god race yesterday were not much different overall. The only difference was that the skeleton race had brought more than 7 billion units of spacetime elemental gems, but the Titan god race did not. With these time and space elemental gems, I'm still 8 billion units away from upgrading my territory. Yuan Song should be able to bring back all the treasures of the Titan god race today. When the time comes, one can directly upgrade my territory. Zhou thought. In addition, he had to get Yuan Song to go to the Skeleton Clan to take over the territory of the Skeleton Clan and take back all the racial resources of the Skeleton Clan. He didn't know if the entire skeleton race's racial resources were enough for him to upgrade his territory again. If he could upgrade his territory again, he could be promoted to a Divine Kingdom Lord faction. Then, he looked at the list of Insight defections and God spirits. Today, Zhou Marshal alone had used the 10,000 Spirit Saint to incite the Insight defection. There were 5 capital units with 1,510,515,063,931,540 skeleton soldiers, 2,411,636 skeleton god spirits, 512 true god tiers of the skeleton race, and 3 master god tiers of the skeleton race. Later on, 2 master god tiers of the skeleton race took the initiative to surrender. In total, there were 5 supremacy gods. As for the lords of the Star Alliance, even though they had only instigated some forces along the way on their way back, they had also instigated 3,254,198,264,784 soldiers of the people of foreign races, 1,251,541 god spirits of the people of foreign races, and 35 true god tier. And finally in today's war, a total of 3,111,540 legendary tier advanced grade soldiers were promoted to low tier deity level elementary grade god spirits on the Blazing Sun Empire's side. There were also 351 high tier deity level advanced grade god spirits who had advanced to true god tier elementary grade god spirits. Qi Xiantian, Feng Luo, Bai Yi, and the other true god tier advanced grade generals had already reached the limit of true god tier advanced grade. He only needed to comprehend his own nomological path to break through the bottleneck and advance to the master god tier, becoming a clan protecting expert. Zhou Zhou wasn't worried at all that they wouldn't be able to break through the bottleneck and advance to the Master God Tier realm with the inheritance of a top-notch Master God Tier. This was because them, who had sufficient aptitude, only needed to digest the Master God Tier inheritance in their mind step by step, and there was an 80% chance of them becoming a Master God Tier. They were only a step away from becoming Master God Tier. In terms of time, the reincarnation sacred palace was completely satisfied. 2 days at the earliest, 5 days at the longest. There will probably be a new human Master God Tier in our human race. Zhou Zhou sighed. When the time comes, the lowest potential of the human race would be increased again, reaching the Diamond Tier potential. Diamond Tier potential meant that as long as they embarked on the path of cultivation, as long as there were no accidents along the way, they had an almost 80% chance of becoming diamond rank powerhouses. This was a Diamond Tier expert. Establishing a kingdom only required 3 extraordinary tier heroes. Diamonds were only 1 level away from extraordinary tier. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He continued reading. He originally had a total of 16,837,208,695,1587 soldiers, 19,435,930 god spirits, and 7,525 true god tiers. Including the additional soldiers and god spirits mentioned above, the soldiers under, he had already reached 7 capital units with 4,529,830. 6,006,219 soldiers, 26,215,547 god spirits, and 8,623 true god tiers. As for the Master God Tier, he, the 5 clones, the Blood Moon Sun, Kidotali, and the 5 skeleton Master God Tiers added up to a total of 13 supremacies. Including Terrence and company, there were a total of 17 supremacies. A Lord faction protected by 17 High Lords and Divine level experts. This is not a weak Lord faction even among Overlord level Lord factions. Zhou Zhou smiled and muttered to himself. Then, he looked at the last page of the war summary. Throughout the day, Zhou Fight and Zhou Wu had been fighting the skeleton clan. They had almost never fought with the lords of the other 10,000 clans or the local lords. However, just by defeating the skeleton army, the Supreme Will had rewarded him with a total of 300 billion hegemony points and 30 million obscure lord shop points. Previously, Zhou Zhou had a total of 145,160,572,000 hegemony points and 7,119,260 obscure lord shop points. Now, including these hegemony points and the obscure lord shop points, he now has a total of 445,160,572,000 hegemony points and 39,399,260 obscure lord shop points. He opened the rankings. The second stage of the Lord of the Races event, Lord of All Races rankings. No. 1. Human Clan, Mortal Lord, hegemony points, 4,451,605,720,000 hegemony points. No. 2. True Spirit Stars Original Spirit Race, True Lord, hegemony points, 1,255,145,850,000 hegemony points. No. 3. Golden Crow Region Chaos Gods Race, Great One Lord, hegemony points, 9,854,157,700 hegemony points. No. 4. Godly King Planet, Shepherd's God Race Heaven Chasing Lord, hegemony points, 5,254,155,700 hegemony points. Zhou Zhou took a look and retracted his gaze calmly. Even though they obtained a lot more hegemony points today than yesterday, it was still incomparable to him. Unless they joined forces and let a lord collect all the lord's hegemony points, it was impossible for them to surpass him. Join forces? That's possible. Zhou Zhou rubbed his chin and thought. Now, even if the original spirit race, the number one race in the myriad worlds, dealt with he themselves, they probably wouldn't be a threat to him. Currently, the only way for these high-level bloodline races to defeat him and snatch the position of the Lord of all races was to join forces during the event and deal with he together. Otherwise, the position of the Lord of all races would most likely belong to him. However, they definitely did not want to see that scene, so they could only join forces. Zhou thought for a moment and smiled. Let's join forces then. This will prevent the Supreme Will from thinking that I'm bullying you Lord of all races and increasing the difficulty for no reason. He stopped thinking and looked at the third day's merchandise. Chapter 1338, The Third Day's Goods. The Beginning of a Divine Kingdom Lord's Power. Please continue reading on. Day 3 Merchandise, Star Destroyer Cannon, Low-tier Deity Level Advanced Grade, Quantity, 20 same as before. Price, 50,000 Obscure Lord Shop Points. Elementary Sun Energy Shield, Low-tier Deity Level Advanced Grade, Quantity, 10 same as before, Price, 50,000 Obscure Lord Shop Points. Fei Yun, Low-tier Deity Level Advanced Grade, Quantity, 5 same as before. Price, 50,000 Obscure Lord Shop Points. Potential Advancement Potion, Low-tier Deity Level Advanced Grade, Quantity, 10 same as before. Price, 10,000 Obscure Lord Shop Points. Spacewalker Class Change Certificate, Kingdom Level Soldier Type, Number, 50,000 same as before. Price, 100 Obscure Lord Shop Points. Heavenly Knight Class Change Certificate, Imperial Tier Soldier Type, Quantity, 500 same as before. Price, 1,000 Obscure Lord Shop Points. Universe Legendary Class Change Certificate, Divine Kingdom Soldier Type, Quantity, 10 same as before. Price, 10,000 Obscure Lord Shop Points. God Summoning Scroll, Low-tier Deity Level Advanced Grade, Quantity, 1 After using this scroll, you can summon a low-tier Deity Level Intermediate Grade God Spirit that is completely loyal to you. Price, 50,000 Obscure Lord Shop Points. Heaven Origin Spirit Gathering Pill, only for Lords, Legendary Tier Advanced Grade, Quantity 1, after consuming this pill, if the user is a Lord and their strength is below the Legendary Tier Advanced Grade, their strength can be forcefully increased by a large level. The highest level can be raised to the Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Price, 100,000 Obscure Lord Shop Points. Note, after purchasing all of them, you can obtain mysterious goods. Mysterious goods are formed according to the situation of the Lord of all races. You can obtain goods that meet the needs of the Lord of all races. Zhou's gaze landed on the last item, Heaven Origin Spirit Gathering Pill. This pill was naturally useless to him. However, to lords of all races who were slowly improving their individual strength, the temptation was quite great. No wonder he used 100,000 Obscure Lord Shop Points to exchange for this Legendary Tier Advanced Grade item. If I buy them all, they'll need to spend 6 million Obscure Lord Shop Points. Tisk. That's a lot. If I hadn't destroyed the entire army of the skeleton race today, it would probably be difficult for me to gather so many Obscure Lord Shop Points even if I spent all day and night fighting the Lord of all races and the local lords. But for the current me, Zhou could not help but smile. It was a total of 39 million Obscure Lord Shop Points, close to 40 million. Zhou seriously suspected that even if he didn't do anything in the next few days, he could still buy all the goods in the Obscure Lord's shop in the next few days. Then, he spent 6 million Obscure Lord Shop Points to buy all the goods in the Hidden Lord shop on the third day. Then, he still had 31,799,260 Obscure Lord Shop Points left. In the next second, a text notification appeared in front of Zhou. Notice, you have bought all the goods in the Obscure Lord's shop on the first day. Congratulations, you have obtained a mysterious good. What is it this time? Zhou's eyes lit up with anticipation. Just as this thought arose in his mind, wisps of golden light appeared out of thin air in front of him. They intertwined and quickly formed 3 items. Zhou took a look and his eyes widened in surprise. This was because these 3 items were none other than the 3 impartation scrolls. The Supreme will really understands me. Since you know that I want to increase my strength, give me 3 magic imparting scrolls to increase my comprehension of Lord's law. Zhou was very satisfied. To the current him, divine artifacts, talents, divine medicines, rare building blueprints, race divine artifacts. In the eyes of other lords, these things were treasures or even treasures, but to him, they were only so. After all, sitting in the number 1 treasure vault that contained countless treasures, he already had high standards. Unless it was a supreme divine artifact or even a holy artifact, he wasn't very interested. What he was most interested in, and what he wanted the most, was to increase his own strength. After all, he already had a total of 17 Master God tier combatants under him. However, his own God Spirit realm had just been raised to the true God tier elementary grade. Even though he could rely on his low-level true God tier God Spirit realm to unleash terrifying combat power comparable to a top-notch Master God tier, however, he still hoped that his true strength could be higher. As a Lord of Go Dao Lu, compared to the countless capable people under him, he still felt that his strength was more important. The Supreme Will had also clearly sensed his thoughts, which was why he had sent over these 3 impartation scrolls. These 3 impartation scrolls shouldn't be enough for me to advance to the true God tier intermediate grade. But it doesn't matter. It's only the 3rd day. There will be many more days in the future. There will be plenty of opportunities to obtain the impartation scroll from the Supreme Will. Zhou thought happily as he held the teaching scroll. At this moment, a message came from his personal terminal. Zhou opened it and realized that it was a message from Yuan Kong. The message stated that he had already brought all the treasures and resources he had plundered from the Titan Sanctuary back to the Divine Sun Kingdom and placed them in the Empire's treasury according to their categories. Below it was a specific list of resources. Zhou took a cursory glance and sighed with emotion at how abundant the other party's resources were. There were so many of them that they were comparable to the resource reserves of 10 blazing sun empires combined. However, in terms of high-end treasures and resources, the Titan God race's resource reserves did not cause any emotional fluctuations in him. It even made Zhou feel that it was nothing much. It seems that although I've only been in the higher continent for a short period of time. However, in terms of the reserves of top-notch treasures, I'm already not inferior to or even far surpass a high-level bloodline race like the Titan God race. Zhou thought to himself. Then, he looked directly at the spacetime gemstone resource that he valued the most. Then, he revealed a smile. Time Elemental Gemstone, 125,615,032,142 units. Space Elemental Gemstone, 156,054,150,120 units. A total of 200 billion spacetime elemental gems. It should be enough for me to upgrade my territory to a true God tier territory. Then, I can advance to a Divine Kingdom Lord faction. Zhou took a deep breath and muttered to himself. His eyes burned with ambition. A Divine Kingdom Lord faction. That was the top Lord faction in the myriad worlds. There were no other criterias. Even the Overlord-level Lord factions were actually Divine Kingdom Lord factions. However, they were the top-notch Divine Kingdom Lord factions, far surpassing other ordinary Divine Kingdom Lord factions. It was already impossible to describe them with just Divine Kingdom Lord factions. Hence, they came up with the name of an Overlord-level Lord faction to describe such top-notch Divine Kingdom Lord factions. As for him, he was finally about to step onto the starting point of this Divine Kingdom Lord faction. Chapter 1339 Upgrading Territory. Chaos Divine Treasure. Please continue reading on. Zhou didn't waste any time. He immediately flew out of the shrine and arrived above the imperial capital. He looked down at the imperial capital and silently chanted his advancement. In the next second, accompanied by 80 million trillion units of basic materials, 1,000 high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine crystals, 20 trillion origin crystals, 40 billion units of spacetime elemental gems, and 10 high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade territory tokens, they disappeared. A text notification appeared. Congratulations, your high-tier deity-level elementary-grade shrine, Lord's Law, has successfully advanced to high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade shrine, Lord's Law. Your territory has been successfully upgraded to high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade territory. Your high-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine origin augmentation formation has been upgraded to high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine origin augmentation formation. Territory stone steel durability increased to 200 trillion/200 trillion. Your territory has expanded to 20 billion kilometers times 20 billion kilometers times 2 million kilometers. All fog monsters within the territory of the new territory have been expelled. Scarlet fog will not appear in any of your territories. You have received an upgrade reward, mythical tier building blueprint treasure chest, high tier deity level intermediate grade. Lord Talent notification, your Scarlet Broodmother can be upgraded. Lord Talent hint, your mysterious caravan faction has increased. Lord Talent notification, the strength of the clergy of your life arc has increased. Zhou nodded slightly. He had finally upgraded to the high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade territory. Then, he did not upgrade the Gate of Summoning. Instead, he immediately looked at the requirement for the high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade territory to be upgraded to the high-tier deity-level advanced-grade territory. Construction upgrade, 50 trillion units of wood, 50 trillion units of fine sand, 50 trillion units of metal, 50 trillion units of stone, 1,000 divine crystals of high-tier deity-level advanced-grade, 50 trillion origin crystals, 50 billion units of time elemental gems, 50 billion units of spatial elemental gems, 10 regional territories of high-tier deity-level advanced-grade god spirits, 500,000 race heroes, 10 high-tier deity-level advanced-grade territory tokens. I can continue to level up. Zhou's face lit up after reading it. Then, he didn't hesitate to spend another 20,000 capital units of basic materials, 1,000 high-tier deity-level advanced-grade divine crystals, 50 trillion origin crystals, 100 billion units of spacetime elemental gems, and 10 high-tier deity-level advanced-grade territory tokens to upgrade his territory to high-tier deity-level advanced-grade territory. A text notification appeared. Congratulations, your high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade shrine, Lord's Law, has successfully advanced to high-tier deity-level advanced-grade shrine, Lord's Law. Your territory has been successfully upgraded to high-tier deity-level advanced-grade territory. Your high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine origin augmentation formation has been upgraded to high-tier deity-level advanced-grade divine origin augmentation formation. Territory stone steel durability increased to 500 trillion/500 trillion. Your territory has expanded to 50 billion kilometers times 50 billion kilometers times 2 million km. All fog monsters within the territory of the new territory have been expelled. Scarlet fog will not appear in any of your territories. You have received an upgrade reward, mythical tier building blueprint treasure chest, low-tier deity level advanced grade. Lord Talent notification, your Scarlet Broodmother can be upgraded. Lord Talent hint, your mysterious caravan faction has increased. Lord Talent notification, the strength of the clergy of your life arc has increased. High-tier deity level advanced grade territory. I'm only a step away from the true god tier territory. Zhou took a deep breath and muttered to himself. Then, he suppressed his anticipation and clicked on the upgrade requirements needed to advance to a true god tier elementary grade territory. Construction upgrade, 1 Gai unit of wood, 1 Gai unit of fine sand, 1 Gai unit of metal, 1 Gai unit of stone, 10,000 lower true God tier divine crystals, 1,000 trillion origin crystals, 10 units of chaos divine treasures, 10 lower true God tier territories, 10 true God tier elementary grade God spirits, 1 million racial heroes, 10 true God tier elementary grade territory tokens. Zhou looked at this upgrade condition and couldn't help but click his tongue when he saw the first condition. Good God! A total of 4 Gai units of basic materials. That's an outrageous request. He mumbled. 10,000 capital units was 1 Gai unit. It was enough to prove how huge this number was now that Gai unit had come into play. Ordinary lords had never even heard of it, let alone owned it. Fortunately, I'm not an ordinary lord. 4 Gai unit basic materials are easy for me. Zhou thought to himself. He had conquered so many races and could easily produce 4 Gai units of basic materials. He was satisfied with the true God tier divine crystals, origin crystals, regional territories, true God tier God spirits, racial heroes, and true God tier territory tokens. Zhou had never even heard of the 10-unit chaos divine treasure, let alone having one. Chaos divine treasure? Zhou looked confused. What is that? No one answered his question. However, Zhou knew who to ask. He took out the Bodhi Supreme and asked, Bodhi Supreme, do you know what a chaos divine treasure is? I do. Tell me. Zhou immediately asked. An answer to a formal question. Bodhi Supreme said leisurely. Sure. Zhou agreed without hesitation. He was willing to pay any price for the treasure that would establish the divine kingdom. Bodhi Supreme said. The Chaos Divine Treasure is a treasure condensed from the body of a creature called Chaos Demon God from the chaotic ruins. Chaotic divine demons are special monsters born from the remnant will of the ruins of primal chaos. Only by defeating the Chaos Fiend Celestials can we take out the Chaos Divine Treasure from his body. Chaotic ruins. Zhou could not help but be surprised. Wasn't that Ning's hometown, the last shelter where the remaining chaos humans were? He didn't think too much about it and immediately asked, what's the strength of that monster? The uniqueness of the chaotic divine demon's skill lies in this. Bodhi Supreme said with a smile, his force doesn't depend on himself, but on the enemy who challenges him. If his enemy had the force of a Master God tier, then this Chaos Fiend Celestial would have the strength of a Master God tier. If his enemies lead an army of trillions to attack, he will create trillions of chaos monsters and jointly deal with his enemies. If his enemy is just an ordinary person. I'm sorry, but the weakest Chaos Fiend Celestial is at the true God tier. So it is actually such an enemy? Zhou tapped his tongue in wonder. This was the first time he had seen such an enemy. Where is the chaotic divine demon in the ruins of primal chaos? Zhou questioned again. Ning definitely knew the location of the chaotic ruins, so he didn't have to worry about not being able to find it. He only needed to find the Chaos Fiend Celestials after reaching the ruins of chaos. The chaotic ruins was extremely vast, far larger than the boundless universe. If he relied on himself to find a chaotic divine demon, it would take him at least 10 days to half a month. Chaotic divine demons won't show themselves. Without a suitable method, you won't be able to find them even if you search the entire ruins of primal chaos. There's only one way to find him. And this method is the reason why he is worth a chance to answer an official question. You have the lost Chaos Dao sacrificial cauldron in your hand, and you still remember the sacrificial ceremony of the Chaos Dao sacrificial cauldron, right? Bodhi Supreme asked. Chapter 1340, Upgrading the Gate of Summoning. Upgrading the original Dragon Abyss. Please continue reading on, I remember. Zhou nodded. The lost Chaos Sacrificial Tao Cauldron could transform the divine artifacts of other races into the divine artifacts of their races. As for the Chaos Origin Manual, it was one of the abilities that the Chaos humans had grasped. He had a deep impression of them, so he naturally wouldn't forget. It'll teach you a new Chaos Tao Sacrificial Ceremony. Remember the original version of the Chaos Tao Sacrificial Ceremony. You should be able to master it soon. After mastering it, you can use the Chaos Tao Sacrificial Cauldron to summon the Chaos Fiend Celestial. Kill him and you will obtain the Chaos Divine Treasure. So troublesome. The corners of Zhou Zhou's mouth twitched. Then, he thought for a moment and suddenly felt that something was amiss. Bodhi Supreme. I remember that when a local lord advances to a divine kingdom, there shouldn't be a Chaos Divine Treasure as a promotion condition, right? Zhou Zhou asked curiously. That's right. There wasn't any in the first place. Bodhi Supreme admitted directly, you are the lord of all races that the Supreme will values very much. In the future, you will be one of the candidates to inherit the position of the lord of all races. The Supreme will slightly increase the difficulty of you advancing to the Divine Kingdom Lord faction to choose the most outstanding lords of the myriad races. Is there a problem? No problem. Zhou Zhou was rendered speechless. However, I have another question. He asked again. If I don't have you, I'm afraid I won't be able to know where the Chaos Divine Treasure is for a long time. Then, if it's other lords of the myriad races who don't have treasures like yours, wouldn't it be even more difficult for them to advance to the Divine Kingdom Lord level? Finding and obtaining the Chaos Divine Treasure is one of the missions for lords of all races to advance to the Divine Kingdom level. You should be glad that you have me. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't even know how to advance to a Divine Kingdom Lord faction in a short period of time. The Bodhi Supreme said lazily. Fine. Zhou Zhou nodded. However, he was indeed very glad that he had a supreme treasure like the Bodhi Supreme that could answer questions. Even if Zhou Zhou was confident that he could still reach where he was today, he would definitely spend more time and suffer more without the Bodhi Supreme. Along the way, the Bodhi Supreme had indeed helped him a lot. It's getting late. I'll go to the ruins of Primal Chaos tomorrow to look for chaotic divine demons. I can also visit the Chaos humans and see if I can subdue them. With my current faction, it shouldn't be a problem to subdue and protect the Chaos humans. Zhou Zhou thought. The Chaos human race's greatest enemy was none other than the Chaos God's race. With his current strength and influence, he was no longer afraid of facing the Chaos God's race head-on. Then, he flew to the Gate of Summoning and spent 80 capital units of basic resources and 1,000 high-tier deity-level intermediate crystals to upgrade the Gate of Summoning to the high-tier deity-level intermediate grade. After which, he spent another 200 capital units basic resources and 1,000 high-tier deity-level advanced crystals to upgrade the Gate of Summoning to the high-tier deity-level advanced grade. Congratulations, your Gate of Summoning has been successfully upgraded to a high-tier deity-level advanced grade building. You can summon 2 million subjects every day. You will summon 50,000 professionals every day. Prompt, under the influence of the unique title of the race, Glory of the Pioneer 11, you can summon 32,620,500 subjects every day. You will summon 50,012 professionals every day. Zhou Zhou nodded after reading it. The number of subjects summoned by the high-tier deity-level advanced grade Gate of Summoning was 5,965,500. After being buffed by the Glory of the Pioneer 11, the number had increased by 11 times, becoming 65,600,500. I'm only a step away from summoning a true God-tier subject every day. Zhou Zhou looked at the notification in front of him and yearned to upgrade his territory to a true God-tier elementary grade territory. Then, he shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He looked at the upgrade requirements of the Gate of Summoning. Construction upgrade, Wood 1 Guy Unit, Sand 1 Guy Unit, Metal 1 Guy Unit, Stone 1 Guy Unit, True God Tier Elementary Grade Divine Crystals 1000, Territory Level upgraded to True God Tier Elementary Grade. Zhou retracted his gaze. Then, he spent 4 capital units of basic materials, 50,000 high-tier deity-level intermediate crystals, and 10 billion basic elemental gems to upgrade the original Dragon Abyss in the Gate of Summoning to the high-tier deity-level intermediate grade. Then, he spent another 20 capital units basic resources, 100,000 high-tier deity-level advanced crystals, and 10 billion basic elemental gems to upgrade the original Dragon Abyss to the high-tier deity-level advanced grade again. Then, he looked over. Building name, Original Dragon Abyss, Construction Level, High-tier deity-level advanced grade, Construction Effect. You can summon 6 billion white silver tier advanced grade pure-blooded dragons, 600 million yellow gold tier advanced grade pure-blooded dragons, 60 million white platinum tier intermediate grade pure-blooded dragons every day from the original Dragon Abyss. 6 true God tier elementary grade dragon gods will become subjects under the Lord and have a 12% chance of summoning legendary dragons. Construction upgrade, 100 capital units of wood, 100 capital units of fine sand, 100 capital units of metal, 100 capital units of stone, 100 divine crystals of true God tier elementary grade, 10,000 divine crystals, 100 million advanced elemental gemstones, territory upgraded to a divine kingdom lord faction, and also worship master God tier dragons. After reading it, Zhou nodded in satisfaction. From now on, he could summon 66,666,666 pure-blooded dragons every day. Moreover, the weakest was a pure-blooded white platinum tier advanced grade dragon. Not bad. He was one step closer to emptying the original Dragon Abyss. As for the more difficult upgrade requirements, Zhou only took a glance and did not care. He believed that after he was promoted to a divine kingdom lord, these seemingly difficult upgrade requirements would become extremely simple for him at that time. Then, he returned to the shrine and called Mu Gu and the others over. Soon, Mu Gu and the rest came over. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The 3 of them said respectfully. "This emperor's territory has just been upgraded. Tell me about your improvements." The current him wouldn't be afraid of any enemy. "Yes, Your Majesty." Mu Gu was the first to step forward. "Your Majesty, the current level of the Scarlet Broodmother that I'm in has been upgraded from high-tier deity-level elementary grade to high-tier deity-level advanced grade. The number of Mist Mothers evolved from the high-tier deity-level advanced grade Scarlet Broodmother has increased from 300,000 to 1 million. Each Mist Mother's Mist Mother world can now nurture 5 billion fog monsters. 1 million Mist Mothers can nurture a total of 5,000 trillion misty monsters. In addition, the quality and efficiency of cultivating high-quality Scarlet Heirs has also increased. Currently, I can nurture 1 True God Advanced Grade Scarlet True God Tier or 10 Elementary Grade Scarlet God Spirits in a day. As for ordinary Scarlet God Spirits, I can continuously create them without rest. It shouldn't be a problem to create 18,000 Scarlet God Spirits a day." Mu Gu said respectfully. Zhou was delighted when he heard that. Chapter 1341, Lord Talent Improvement. Pangus Axe. Please continue reading on. Zhou was overjoyed. The Scarlet Broodmother of the Mu Valley always surprised him the most every time his territory advanced. He could create a true God-tier advanced grade Scarlet God Spirit in a day. Even the original spirit race wouldn't dare to think that way, right? However, after some thought, Zhou decided not to specially nurture the Scarlet True God tier, rather he would like to specially nurture elite soldiers. He still liked the method of manufacturing soldiers in large quantities. Moreover, with more ordinary soldiers, there would always be a few elite soldiers among them. There was no delay. Of your 1 million Mist Mothers, leave 200,000 behind to specially nurture the Iron-Eating Bear and the Withered Tree. The other 800,000 Mist Mothers, 400,000 will be used to nurture the Violent Storm Demon Spirit, and the other 400,000 will be used to nurture the Yellow Talisman Dao soldiers. Zhou Zhou could not help but smile at the end. A total of 800,000 mist mothers. It was enough to nurture 4,000 trillion mother nest monsters. With the enhancement of the King of Loots and other Lord talents and titles, he could obtain 800 trillion Yellow Talisman Dao soldier recruitment books, 800 trillion Yellow Talisman Dao soldier class change certificates, 800 trillion Violent Storm Spirit recruitment books, and 800 trillion Violent Storm Spirit class change certificates tomorrow. If he converted all these recruitment books and class change certificates into new recruits, it would be a total of 2,400 trillion soldiers, which was 4 capital units of soldiers. Thinking of this number, even though Zhou Zhou was mentally prepared, he still shouted in his heart that it was ridiculous. His current total military strength, excluding the god spirits, only added up to 7 capital units with 4,529,830. 6,006,219 soldiers. This was already an extremely terrifying number for the 10,000 races. Even for overlord-level lord factions, there were very few who had such troops. However, from tomorrow onwards, he would be able to recruit 4 capital units troops every day. In just 3 days, he would be able to recruit 7 capital units of soldiers. This is ridiculous. Zhou Zhou exclaimed in surprise. 3 days later, by tomorrow, the total number of troops under him would be infinitely close to the 10 capital units. With this number of troops, he could expand his empire's territory even faster. Yes, Your Majesty. On the other side. Mu Gu immediately said respectfully after hearing Zhou Zhou's words. Then, he retreated. Seeing this, Zheng Fugue stepped forward. Reporting to Your Majesty, the number of mysterious merchant has increased from 5 billion to 20 billion after our territory was promoted to a high-tier deity-level advance grade. The number of carriages transporting goods has also increased to 20 billion. All of our mysterious merchant strength has also increased to high-tier deity-level advance grade. Our treasure hunting ability has improved again. In the future, when we go out to do business, we should be able to bring back at least 10,000 god-tier treasures each time. He said respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded. He felt even more emotional. Mu Gu's side had improved greatly. Zheng Fugue's side was equally as shocking. A total of 20 billion high-tier deity-level advance-grade god spirits. Such troops were probably only possessed by Supreme God Realm factions and stronger factions. It was impossible for an overlord faction to have such a huge number of god spirits. Zheng Fugue left after he finished speaking. Seeing this, Carol Moeli stepped forward and said respectfully, reporting to Your Majesty, after the territory was upgraded to a high-tier deity-level advance grade, our life arc already has 100 trillion clergymen, 2 trillion priests, 2 trillion nuns, and 2,000 trillion life holy knights. These clergymen are enough to complete the war treatment mission and resurrect the war with 300 billion troops. Also, currently, there are 5 million high-level divine duty members of the life arc God Spirit level. Every one of them has mastered the resurrection spells, and they can resurrect the deities of our country alone. As for my strength, I'm already at Master God tier elementary grade. I haven't obtained any new improvements for the time being. Not bad. Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded at Carol Moeli. It was a pity that Carol Moela's strength didn't improve. However, the number of clergymen under him had greatly increased. These clergymen were enough to complete the war healing mission and the war resurrection mission of the 10 capital units. It was enough to satisfy his needs in a short period of time. As for the future, he could take his time. In any case, his territory not only had clerics from the Church of Life who were good at healing, but there were also doctors, pharmacists, and other lifestyle professionals who were good at healing and pharmaceuticals. In a short period of time, there was no need to worry about the soldiers under him being injured and unable to be treated. Then, he chatted with Mu Gu and company for a while before letting them leave. Just as Zhou Zhou was about to return to the Reincarnation Sacred Palace and use the 3 magic imparting scrolls to improve his law comprehension as a true God-tier elementary grade lord, he suddenly sensed something. He was first stunned before he revealed a look of pleasant surprise. His divine body suddenly vanished from the spot. Outside the high continent, in the vast, boundless, fantastical, and magnificent universe sea of stars, a tall man about 10,000 light-years tall, with disheveled hair, an angular face, ancient eyes, and a muscular body, his upper body was naked, and his lower body was wrapped in an animal skin skirt. He held a pitch-black axe in his hand and stood there quietly looking up at the starry sky. Swoosh! Zhou Zhou appeared 1,000,000 light-years away and stared at the other party from afar. His appearance didn't attract the axe-wielding man's attention. The axe-wielding man quietly looked up at the starry sky, as if he was thinking about something. Gradually, his eyes lit up. In the end, his left eye was as bright as the sun, emitting a scorching golden light. His right eye was as bright as the great lunar star, emitting a silvery white light. He slowly raised his giant axe. At the same time he raised his giant axe, a terrifying aura and astonishing willpower that pressed forward and opened a path forward emitted from him. Within a radius of 10,000,000 light-years, under this aura and will, everything became quiet. No life form dared to make a sound. All living beings within a radius of 10,000,000 light-years looked up at the starry sky in the direction of the axe-wielding man. Most of them could not see what was happening tens of millions of light-years away. However, in the depths of their hearts, the figure of the axe-wielding man quietly appeared. This scene was destined to be remembered by countless life forms. This axe, Zhou Zhou stared at the axe and felt the will on it. He could not help but be deeply shocked. He's actually at the limit of the will-like light realm like me? He's only a step away from advancing to the will divine transformation realm. He hasn't advanced to Master God tier yet. He's still at the true God tier advanced grade, but it won't be long. He muttered to himself. Speaking of which, the axe-wielding man raised his axe high and roared as he slashed down at the vast starry sky in front of him. In the next second, a chaotic axe light stretched for tens of millions of light-years and directly slashed out a huge spatial rift in the universe, unable to close for a long time. The axe-wielding man, Pangu, slowly retracted his huge axe. "I'm finally a Master God," Pangu muttered. Chapter 1342 Master God of Dual Laws, Pangu. Please continue reading on. Pangu sat cross-legged in the starry sky and began his final breakthrough. Rumble. An extremely terrifying pressure burst forth from his body and spread into the cosmos. Then, 99,999 extremely bright stars slowly appeared in the starry sky. These stars were connected to each other, forming a constellation that looked like a chaotic giant axe. As soon as the giant axe constellation appeared, the surrounding stars immediately flickered as if they could not withstand the huge pressure emitted by the constellation. At this moment, the giant axe constellation suddenly emitted an extremely dense chaotic light. The chaotic light was born from the starry sky and shone directly on Pangu, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Under the illumination of this chaotic light, the aura on Pangu's body became even more terrifying, and he began to rapidly advance to the Master God tier elementary grade. At this moment, a dark purple light silently burst out from the distant starry sky. In the middle of the light, one could vaguely see a dark purple sharp dagger stained with blood. It surpassed the speed of light and stabbed at Pangu, who was breaking through. If this attack succeeded, not only would Pangu fail to break through, but he might even die from the backlash of the failure. Pangu, who was closing his eyes and breaking through with all his might, frowned slightly. However, he was at the critical moment of his breakthrough. He couldn't be distracted, much less attack. Otherwise, he would also die. He never expected that in order to break through, he had already gone far enough, but he had still been discovered by an unfamiliar enemy. At this critical moment, a cold snort suddenly sounded. A painful groan came from the void of space. Following that, a dark purple figure was ejected from space. Then, he fled in the opposite direction without looking back. You can come and go as you please. You look down on this emperor too much. Zhou Zhou said calmly. In the next second, a blood-colored stream of light shot out from Zhou Zhou's hand. It was the race's divine artifact, the sacred spear of Longinus. In the blink of an eye, the sacred spear of Longinus pierced through this unfamiliar master god tier who intended to launch a sneak attack. This unfamiliar master god tier only felt an immense pain that he had never felt before. It stimulated his soul, body, and will. He screamed repeatedly before looking at the blood-colored steel fork stuck in his chest in disbelief. No, he had yet to finish speaking. In the next second, the blood-colored steel fork suddenly released golden flames. They quickly spread throughout his body as soon as the golden flames appeared. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was set ablaze. He perished in the golden flames before this unfamiliar master god tier could react. So it's an evil god. Zhou Zhou sneered. The sacred spear of Longinus was the spear of light and destruction of demons. It had additional damage against evil gods and demon gods. The god spirit looked injured just now. It was obvious that the evil god and demon god were injured. It was also because the other party was a god spirit like an evil god or demon god that he was able to kill him in one strike. With his subsequent move, he saw the corpse that had been burned by the golden flames until only the corpse was left, as well as the sacred spear of Longinus instant transmitting in front of him. Zhou Zhou casually extracted his corpse. In the end, he only extracted a dozen or so true god-tier divine artifacts and was no longer interested. He casually placed them and the sacred spear of Longinus into the first treasure vault. Then, he continued to watch Pangus' advancement. After that, there were no more ambushes by unfamiliar god spirits, so Pangu successfully advanced to become a master god-tier elementary grade god spirit. At the same time, Zhou Zhou also looked in the direction of the high continent as if he had sensed something. He had just sensed that the potential of the human subjects under his command had been upgraded again. They had officially broken through the bottleneck of the white platinum tier advanced grade and reached the diamond tier elementary grade. Which meant, from this moment on, among all the humans in the myriad worlds, all the humans under, he had the lowest potential at the diamond tier elementary grade. When Zhou Zhou thought of this, a smile appeared on his face. A diamond tier elementary grade life form. This could definitely be considered as the ranks of experts. And every subject under him had a chance to become such an expert. As their lord, he was sincerely happy for the potential and future of his subjects. At this moment, Pangu, who had already advanced to a master god-tier elementary grade god spirit, slowly opened his eyes. He held a huge axe and casually opened a spatial rift beside him, before walking in. In the next second, a spatial rift emerged in front of Zhou Zhou, and Pangu walked out. "Hello, Patriarch," Pangu said. "Greetings, Imperial Lord Pangu." Zhou Zhou also smiled. Pangu stroked his messy hair and chuckled. "Forget about the Emperor. It has some conflict with your honorific name, Patriarch. In the future, you can call me Pangu. Emperor, there's no need to be humble. I grew up listening to your legendary tier." Zhou Zhou smiled. "I grew up listening to my legends. The Patriarch is really the first person in history to obtain such achievements before the age of 30. Pangu sighed. He wasn't flattering him. He wasn't someone who was good at flattering others. He was indeed speaking from the bottom of his heart. To be able to become a true god tier before the age of 30 and even have the combat power of a master god tier, and even be able to achieve such an achievement that left all races dumbfounded in the myriad worlds. Not to mention the human race, even in the original spirit race, the number one race in the myriad worlds, such a figure did not exist. It could even be uttered that he did not even dare to think about it. Zhou smiled and didn't say anything else. He cupped his fists and congratulated, "I haven't congratulated Your Excellency Pangu on becoming a Master God yet. I merely didn't expect Your Excellency Pangu to not only achieve the great Tao of Master God tier with the Law of Strength, but also achieve the same achievement in the Law of Opening. Your Excellency also has a chance to become a Supreme God realm in the future." Zhou sighed. Yes, during the process of His Excellency Pangu's advancement, Zhou not only felt the nomological fluctuations of the Master God tier Law of Strength from him, he also felt the nomological fluctuations of the Master God tier Law of Opening. This Your Excellency Pangu had actually used the laws of 2 Master God tiers to achieve the position of Master God. Such ambition. Such boldness. Such talent. Such comprehension. Zhou could not help but be deeply impressed. In addition, even though the Law of Opening was not within the top 10 of the heavenly laws, it was also ranked in the top 100 laws. The Law of Strength was one of the top 10 Law Great Tao. With these 2 types of Master God tier laws as the foundation and the fact that the other party was infinitely close to the Will Divine Transformation realm, Zhou uttered that the other party had a chance of advancing to the Supreme God realm in the future. Even though it was merely a trace, it was also an opportunity that countless Master God tier experts could only dream of. If they were both Master God tiers, there were also differences in aptitude. Then, His Excellency Pangu could definitely be considered a Master God tier with superior aptitude. As for himself, naturally, it belonged to the top batch. Chapter 1343, Zhou's doubt. Please continue reading on. I wouldn't have waited until both laws reached the Master God tier level before advancing if it wasn't for the Supreme God realm. Pangu shook his head. Zhou raised his eyebrows. It turned out that His Excellency Pangu had long been able to advance to the Master God tier level. It was only for the sake of reaching a higher Supreme God realm that he had been holding back from breaking through. He only officially broke through when the 2 laws reached the Master God tier realm. He was really patient. Zhou was surprised. I wonder if Your Excellency Pangu is willing to join my empire? He asked. Such an existence naturally had to be roped into his side. I'm from the human race, and Your Excellency is the master of the human race. In addition, Your Majesty saved my life. How can I not join Your Majesty? Pangu agreed readily. If not for the divine medicine that Zhou had given him, he would probably have slept for thousands of years more before waking up. In a few thousand years, the Lord of all races competition might be over. At that time, the human race might not even be around anymore. Therefore, Pangu was really grateful that Zhou could wake him up and let him see a completely new human who was countless times stronger than before. Zhou smiled and nodded. Then, Your Excellency, follow this emperor back to the empire. Coincidentally, there are still some treasures and buildings in the empire that are suitable for Your Excellency to continue cultivating. I believe Your Excellency will like them. The current him wouldn't be afraid of any enemy. I couldn't ask for more. Pangu nodded when he heard this. His expression was calm and he did not look too excited. He had experienced many hardships for humanity after all. He was an existence that had led humanity from insignificant to rising. Such a trivial matter of not batting an eyelid even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him was just a basic operation for him. Zhou nodded. Then, he brought Pangu back to the Blazing Sun Empire. After the 2 of them returned to the Blazing Sun Empire, Zhou immediately gathered the upper echelons of the Blazing Sun Empire and all the Lord-level existences for a high-level banquet. He also met the former patriarch of the human race and informed everyone that Pangu had joined the Blazing Sun Empire and become its worshipped master god. The Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Lu, the Buddha Lord, and Bai He were among the people who met Pangu. When the four human leaders saw Pangu, tears immediately welled up in their eyes. Especially Patriarch Lu. This person was a sentimental person to begin with. After seeing Pangu revive, he immediately hugged him excitedly with tears in his eyes. "Brother!" The Yellow Emperor's expression was agitated and his eyes were filled with tears, but at least he could control his actions. "You're finally awake. Our human race is stronger than before. From now on, no other race will dare to bully us. We have already become the top race among the myriad races in the world. Buddha is benevolent." The Buddha Lord put his palms together and smiled. "I've said it before. Eldest brother has cut through the thorns and cut open the path for the human race, protecting the rise of the human race. How great is the merit of the human race! Even if you experience hardships, there will definitely be a day when you'll be satisfied. Now look, am I right?" Okay. I know you're right." Bai He then said respectfully to Pangu, "Fifth brother greets eldest brother. Good fifth brother." Pangu patted Bai He's shoulder with a rueful expression. Bai He was the last to reach the true God realm among the five of them. Moreover, Pangu was attacked and fell asleep not long after he became a true god. Therefore, Bai He had the least contact with Pangu. However, even though he had not interacted much with Pangu, Bai He was one of the most worried about Pangu as a true god who had listened to Pangu since he was young and respected Pangu from the bottom of his heart. After that, the human race suffered continuously. First, the Yellow Emperor's divine body was destroyed, so he could only sleep in the Xianyuan tomb to maintain his divine soul body. Then, the Buddha Lord took the initiative to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Only Patriarch Lu and he, the two true god tiers, remained in the human race. However, in order to protect the inheritance of the human race and search for resources for the human race, Patriarch Lu took the initiative to hide his identity and disappear from the infinite worlds. Bai He was the only true god left in the human race. He was clearly the youngest of the five human true god tiers. However, he had taken on the heaviest responsibility of the human race. Even though Pangu was in a deep sleep, he knew about these things. However, he was powerless to interfere. He could only watch as Bai He grew through the trials and tribulations of danger. In the end, he became the true pillar of the human race and protected the human race until Zhou Zhou appeared. He was back. Pangu swept his gaze across Yellow Emperor and the other human leaders and said, "Everyone, it's time to fight side by side again in the future." "Okay. Hahaha, big brother, I've been waiting for this sentence for a long time. Let's fight to our heart's content for the humans behind us." The Yellow Emperor and the others laughed. "Brother, I'm already at true god tier advanced grade." Patriarch Lu smiled. Me too. I've also advanced to the true god tier advanced grade, and am about to comprehend the will-like light realm. Before long, I'll be able to open up a new nomological law and become a master god tier like Big Brother. Yellow Emperor and the others said one after another. "This is all thanks to your majesty. Without the top-notch master god tier inheritance given to us by His Majesty, it's impossible for us to reach this step so quickly," the Buddha Lord said. Pangu looked at Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou raised his glass and smiled. He was also very satisfied. It could be said that the hardships that humans had suffered had come to an end. That night, all the upper echelons of the empire were very happy. At the same time, Zhou Zhou also gave the order to spread the news of Pangu's awakening to all the humans in the myriad worlds and tell them the news of a universal celebration. After the banquet ended, Zhou Zhou did not rest. Instead, he returned to the reincarnation sacred palace and began to comprehend the Lord's laws with the help of the teaching scroll. The next day, in the reincarnation sacred palace, Zhou opened his eyes. He lowered his head and looked at his empty palm. He then rubbed his fingertips reluctantly. The impartation scroll is indeed a good thing. As expected of something tailor-made for me by the Supreme Will. In just one night, after consuming 3 magic imparting scrolls, my Lord's law comprehension actually increased greatly. If this happens 2 or 3 more times, I should be able to advance to the true God-tier intermediate grade, right? Zhou sighed. He had a deep understanding of the difficulty of comprehending a Lord's laws. In the past, even with the help of the reincarnation sacred palace, he would not be able to achieve such progress without at least 8 days. However, he was able to do it overnight with the help of the magic imparting scroll. This way, he was even more looking forward to the rewards of the mysterious daily products. I hope that the reward for today's mysterious item is also a magic teaching scroll. I don't need anything else. Zhou thought to himself. Then, he opened his Lord Talent interface to see what mythical tier unique Lord Talent he had awakened today. Soon, he saw a brand new mythical tier unique Lord Talent. However, after he read it, not only was he not happy, he even frowned slightly. He thought for a moment before taking out the Bodhi Supreme and asking, Bodhi Supreme, why hasn't a new mythical tier Lord Talent awakened in the past few days? The ones who awakened are all other mythical tier 1 Lord Talents. Chapter 1344 Mythical Tier, the only Lord Talent, Nomological Divine Body. Please continue reading on, a chance to answer ordinary questions. The Bodhi Supreme said lazily. Use it. Zhou said without hesitation. This is because mythical tier, the only Lord of the 10 sacred blessings, is unique. The other 6 mythical tier Lord Talents of the only level of the 10 sacred blessings have already been occupied by the other lords of the myriad races, so you naturally can't awaken them. Bodhi Supreme answered. Zhou raised his eyebrows. He recalled the Master God tier that the other 6 mythical tiers and the only Lord Talent belonged to. They were, the God of Death, Thanatos, the Radiant Master God, Helu, the original Master God tier, Source, the Primordial Dragon, First Venerable, the King of all Gods, Di Huang and the Chaotic Beast God, Heaven Curse Beast. Zhou quickly sensed that 5 of the 6 Master God tiers had an obvious characteristic. That was, their races all had their own races behind them. The Radiant Angel race was behind the Radiant Master God, Helu. The original Spirit race behind the original Master God tier, Source. The Dragon behind the Primordial Dragon, First Venerable. The Shepherd's God race behind the King of all Gods, Di Huang. The Chaotic Beast God, the Chaos Gods race behind the Heaven Curse Beast. When Zhou sensed this, he immediately told Bodhi Supreme. The Bodhi Supreme did not hide anything and said lazily, you're right. The remaining Lord Talents and their mythical tier unique level are actually left behind by these Master God tiers for their races. This can also be considered a benefit for them as the founders of the Lord Talent. It's also tacitly approved by the Supreme Will. From the beginning of the Lord of all races competition, these mythical tier talents already have their owners. Naturally, you won't be able to obtain them. Zhou frowned but did not say anything. This was someone else's ability. It was just like how parents would favor their children in school disputes. There was nothing wrong with it. Who did Your Excellency Thanatos give the Lord Talent to? Zhou asked curiously. The Imperial Dark Tribe. This can be considered a top-notch bloodline race in the Netherworld. If we trace the origin of their bloodline, it might even be related to the will of the Netherworld. They obtained Thanatos mythical tier, the one Lord Talent. Not to mention the other races, even this divine being of Thanatos has no objections. Bodhi Supreme said. Zhou nodded. In that case, if I still want to obtain these 6 Lord Talents of the 10 sacred blessings, I can only kill them before they drop. He stroked his chin and thought. This is indeed the easiest method for you. Bodhi Supreme said. Zhou nodded. Then, he suddenly had an idea. Wasn't there the radiant angel race in the active universe? He wondered if the mythical tier Lord Talent was among them. If it was, he would have a high chance of obtaining the other party's Lord Talent. Then, he stopped thinking about it and returned his gaze to the new mythical tier Lord Talent. This Lord Talent was originally a diamond tier Lord Talent, connate spirit body. The effect was that, he and the subjects under him all had connate spirit bodies. Their potential increased by a large level, and they also had other magical uses to assist in cultivation. Perhaps he had been thinking about the subject's lowest potential for the past 2 days, so the Lord Talent he had awakened today had become the only version of the connate spirit Bodhis mythical tier. Lord Talent, divine body of laws, mythical tier, unique, divine body of laws, specific Lord Talent effect 1, you and your territory's subject constitution are both law divine bodies. Your potential has increased by 2 major levels. The highest you can reach is Master God tier advanced grade. Specific Lord Talent effect 2, the lowest strength of you and the subjects under you is white silver tier elementary grade. Specific Lord Talent effect 3, it is easier for you and the subjects under you to comprehend the power of extraordinary tier and become extraordinary tier professionals. Specific Lord Talent effect 4, it's easier for you and the subjects under you to comprehend laws, create new skills, and even create law skills. Specific Lord Talent effect 5, when you and the subjects under you advance to the God Spirit realm, your success rate will increase by 30%. When you advance to the True God tier, your success rate will increase by 5%. When you advance to the Master God tier, your success rate will increase by 0.1%. After reading it, Zhou took a deep breath. Good God! Zhou took a deep breath after reading it. First of all, the first Lord Talent was the constitution of the subjects under he and him. Their potential would enhance by 2 major levels, and the highest they could reach was the Master God tier advanced grade. There were already countless subjects under him. There were already as many soldiers as the 7 capital units, not to mention the other professionals and the non-professionals. There should be at least 100 capital units. The potential of the capital unit subjects had increased by 2 levels. This meant that even a subject with the lowest potential at the black iron tier elementary grade would reach the white silver tier elementary grade with the nomological divine body. Including other methods to enhance his potential, the weakest subject under him was an extraordinary tier elementary grade. That was the potential of an extraordinary tier elementary grade. He would definitely be in existence at the level of the kingdom's high officials as long as he did not fall in the future. In other words, all the subjects under him now had the potential to be consecrated by the kingdom. Second effect, let the lowest strength of the subjects under his command be white silver tier elementary grade. This effect was obviously very powerful, but Zhou was not very surprised. This was because among the myriad races in the world, there were many races with high bloodlines. Their strength and realm at birth were indeed much higher than other races. For example, the weakest pure-blooded dragon was at least at the green bronze tier elementary grade. For example, when Nazario was just born, his strength had reached green bronze tier advanced grade. This aptitude was already considered above average among the dragons. As for the dragons, apart from the legendary dragons, the yellow-gold sacred dragon, who had the highest bloodline, was born with a minimum strength of diamond tier elementary grade. Among the other races, there were also many races. Their strength at birth was already higher than the peak of many weak races. However, even so, the lowest initial strength of a lower-level white-silver tier was considered rare among the myriad races. It was even enough to be ranked in the top 50. At the very least, it was stronger than the dragon race. From now on, none of the subjects under he would be weak. When danger came, Zhou could even choose to turn the entire population into soldiers and let all the subjects rely on their extraordinary tier powers to fight. Of course, unless it was a true crisis, he wouldn't do that. As for the third effect of the Lord Talent, comprehend the power of extraordinary tier and become an extraordinary tier professionals. This effect seemed inconspicuous, but it was an ability that many lords yearned for. Not every lord had a huge number of recruitment books and class change certificates like Zhou after all. Most of the extraordinary tier soldiers under the lords who had mastered extraordinary tier power were obtained through years of cultivation. It was not easy. If their lords had this talent effect, their power would enhance by at least 1,000 or 10,000 times with the accumulation of time. Chapter 1345 10 Capital Unit Soldiers. Please continue reading on. As for the fourth effect, it was easier to comprehend skills or even law skills. This was similar to the benefits of the previous talent ability. It could help the Lord save a large number of skill books and greatly increased the combat power of the subjects. If one could comprehend law skills, it would be equivalent to having a ticket to the God Spirit realm or higher. There was a high possibility of advancing to the God Spirit realm, as well as the higher True God tier and Master God tier realms. As for the last effect, it naturally did not need to be said to increase the success rate of advancing to God Spirit, True God tier, or even Master God tier. This effect was enough to make any life form or even God Spirit envious. If Zhou was willing to publicize this talent effect, it was guaranteed that countless God spirits would come to join his territory. The current prerequisite was that they weren't afraid of enemies like the original spirit race who were his enemies. I can try to make it public and increase the probability of God spirits from the outside world coming to join me. Zhou thought. Then, he did whatever he wanted to do. He immediately told Jing Yuanqi about this matter and got him to publicize this news to the Supreme Continent and even the myriad worlds. Then, Zhou closed the Lord Talent interface and flew out of the palace to Mugu. At this moment, Wuxia had already led his army into the Scarlet Broodmother and was hunting the nest monsters inside. When Zhou saw this, he chatted with Mugu while drinking tea. A moment later, a golden stream of light flew out of the Scarlet Broodmother and landed on the ground, transforming into Wu Xin's figure. "Greetings, Your Majesty." When Wuxia saw Zhou, he immediately said respectfully, "It's been hard on Legion Commander Wuxia." Zhou nodded and asked expectantly, "How's the harvest?" "Your Majesty, please take a look." Wuxia excitedly took out 3 world rings. Zhou took it and immediately looked at the spoils of war. One of the world rings contained a large number of iron-eating bear pet eggs, tree core gems, and other loots. Among the other 2 world rings, one contained 8,000 trillion copies of the Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier recruitment books and 8,000 trillion copies of the Violent Storm Spirit recruitment books. The other world ring contained 8,000 trillion copies of the Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificate and 8,000 trillion copies of the Violent Storm Spirit Class Change Certificate. Zhou took a deep breath and could not help but reveal an excited expression. This was a total of 2 capital unit soldiers. He only had 7. 4 capital unit soldiers now. This recruitment directly recruited more than half of his total military strength. After the recruitment, his soldiers would directly break through the 10 capital units. It was simply terrifying. This isn't even the Scarlet Broodmother's limit. This is only the Scarlet Broodmother of a high-tier deity level advanced grade. It's hard to imagine how many troops he will recruit every day after the Scarlet Broodmother becomes a Master God tier advanced grade. Zhou thought to himself. Then, he looked at Wuxia and said, "Legion Commander Wu, as usual, you should go to the reserve recruits. Pick out the one 6 capital units reserve recruits and change their profession to the Violent Storm Spirit and the Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier. Then, lead the Violent Storm Spirit to change their profession to a Forbidden Mage. This emperor will go to the Gate of Summoning to recruit new recruits. Zhou said. I understand. Wu Xian immediately nodded. These were 6 capital units recruits. Just thinking about it made him excited. By the way, do we have enough reserve recruits? Zhou asked. He was really afraid that he had too many class change certificates and that the reserve recruits under him would not be able to use them all. Don't worry, Your Majesty. If it was before, it might not have been enough. However, ever since we turned all the Titan God race subjects and their affiliated races into our Empire's subjects, the number of reserve recruits recorded in our records has already reached 100 capital units. And the number is still increasing. By the way, Your Majesty, the Skeleton Clan has already been defeated by us. Now is the time when the Skeleton Clan is at its weakest. If we can completely subdue the Skeleton Tribe and their subsidiary subjects and convert them into our Empire's subjects, we will record at least as many reserve recruits as the capital units. Wu Xian smiled faintly and said, at that time, let alone capital 3, 2, we can easily gather 32 capital units, 320 capital units, and 3,200 capital units. The skeleton race was known as one of the races with the most people in the myriad worlds. If the other party could become a citizen of the Blazing Sun Empire, the Blazing Sun Empire would no longer have to worry about the problem of recruiting sources. You're right. Then let the soldiers under you be prepared. Take down the entire skeleton race within 3 days and make the skeleton race a race that belongs to our Blazing Sun Empire. The current him wouldn't be afraid of any enemy. Wu Xian was right. The main force of the skeleton race had already been wiped out in the active universe. Without the support of those master god tiers, the skeleton race in the great cosmos only had the skeleton emperor as their master god tier. It could be said that the entire skeleton race was at their weakest and easiest to take down. All the races in the world would probably covet the skeleton race, a high-level bloodline race. As the instigator of all this, Zhou naturally would not give up the results he had created. He would be the skeleton race's only master since he was the one who defeated them. Just as Wu Xian had said, after the countless people of the skeleton tribe submitted, they would become his strongest source of troops for conquering the myriad races in the future. Zhou could not refuse such temptation. Yes, Your Majesty. Wu Xian said respectfully. Zhou nodded. Then, he did not waste any more time. He immediately transformed into a golden stream of light and flew out of the Divine Kingdom world. When Wu Xian saw this, he quickly left Mugu and headed to the camp where the reserve recruits were. In front of the Gate of Summoning, Zhou looked at the towering Gate of Summoning in front of him. With a wave of his hand, he threw all the 6 capital units recruitment books in the world rings into the Gate of Summoning. Zhou skillfully called over a Cosmos Emperor when he saw this. Then, he threw 100 mid-tier deity-level advanced-grade divine crystals into the Gate of Summoning, summoned all 512 trillion new recruits, and placed them in the Cosmos Emperor's internal world. He said a few simple words to these recruits, then inquired Zero to bring these recruits to the Forbidden Archmage statue to change their profession to Forbidden Mages. Then, he spent another 100 high-tier deity-level advanced-grade divine crystals to summon today's new subject. In the end, he summoned a total of 99,999,999 new subjects. Among them were 12 high-tier deity-level advanced-grade god spirits. Zhou was stunned when he saw this number. This is really a coincidence. I'm just one person short of 100 million subjects. Then, he smiled and didn't mind. Instead, he spent another 100 high-tier deity-level advanced-grade divine crystals to summon another 66,666,666 pure-blooded dragons from the Gate of Summoning and let them descend into the inner world of another Cosmos Emperor. I didn't summon a legendary dragon. Zhou looked at the 60 billion pure-blooded dragons and shook his head in pity. However, he soon didn't care. It's my fortune to have it, but it's my fate to lose it. Then, he came to the Lord's shop and took a look at what good goods there were today. In the end, what made he helpless was that the Lord's shop only spawned one Master God-tier divine artifact and two true God-tier divine artifacts today. If other Master God-tier saw this kind of commodity, they would definitely be overjoyed. However, to Zhou, he couldn't be moved. However, he still took out some Master God-tier divine crystals and bought the 3 items. Then, he called Qi Xiantian over. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Qi Xiantian uttered respectfully. "Organize the army and prepare to head to the ruins of chaos." Zhou uttered in a low voice. "Yes, Your Majesty." Chapter 1346 Chaos God's Race, Roaring Towards the Sky. Please continue reading on. Zhou now had a total of 10 capital units, 6,529,830,6219 soldiers, 26,876,547 God spirits, 9,289 true God tiers, and 6 Lord Gods, excluding Zhou, the 5 clones, Terrence, and the other 4 Master God tiers. Other than sending a portion of the army to the Cerulean planet, Zhou planned to only lead the army of the 5 capital units, 10 million God spirits, 5,000 true God tiers, Zhou Sheng, Pangu, Blood Moon Sun, and Kidotali. As for the other soldiers and God spirits, he planned to stay in the High Continent in case of emergencies. The God spirits and soldiers soon boarded a Master God tier elementary grade eternal warship and headed for the ruins of chaos. On the way to the primal chaos ruins, Ning was looking at the dark universe outside with a dazed expression. "Why?" Zhou Win's gentle voice sounded behind her. "Your Majesty, it's nothing. I just miss my hometown a little. I wonder how my family and clansmen are doing. Are they doing well? The chaos beasts have been hunting us chaos humans at the periphery of the chaos ruins. When we return this time, we will probably lose a few friends I know." Ning turned around hurriedly and replied respectfully, her voice a little depressed. Regardless of whether they were doing well in the past, this emperor can definitely bring them a better life than before now that this emperor is here. Zhou Win said with a faint smile. His voice was filled with indifference and boundless confidence. "I believe in Your Majesty." Ning nodded vigorously. The God spirits of other empires and her saw how powerful the Blazing Sun Empire was. Even the insufferably arrogant Titan God race had been defeated by His Majesty. Even though the Chaos Gods race was much stronger than the Titan God race, they did not want to fight the Titan God race head-on. They only wanted to save the Chaos human race in the Chaos ruins. There was a high chance that the Chaos Gods race would not mobilize their entire army to deal with the Blazing Sun Empire. Under such circumstances, they still had a certain level of confidence in dealing with the Chaos Gods race. The chaotic ruins was located in the crystal wall of the Supreme Great Cosmos and was extremely far from the High Continent. Even if a Master God tier wanted to rush to the ruins of chaos, it would take a long time to arrive. Fortunately, their Master God level elementary grade spaceship, the Eternal Warship, was very good at long-distance marches. In addition, with Zhou's support from the side, even though the ruins of chaos was very far from the High Continent, they only took a day to reach it. Outside the primal chaos ruins, Zhou Win and the soldiers floated outside the spaceship and looked at the primal chaos ruins a light year away. He saw an incomplete continent wrapped in dense chaotic airflow floating in the void of the universe. Numerous chaos gods race beings, such as the Vermilion Bird, Ghost Chariot, 9 Neonates, Sealing Boar, Justice Beast, spread head, tiger head man, yellow stead, winged tiger, mystic lion and so on, rode on the Chaos God's race battleships and shuttled through the chaotic airflow as if they were patrolling. At the same time, they were also diverting their attention to control Master God tier level array formations that enveloped this incomplete continent. It looked like they were imprisoning something. So this is the Primal Chaos Ruins. It was originally a part of the Chaos Humans' residence and also a part of the Chaos Sea. Later on, the Chaos Will perished. As a direct descendant of the Chaos Will, we were besieged by thousands of races. Among the races that were besieged, the Chaos God's race was the strongest race. Back then, our Chaos Human race relied on our race's heritage to monopolize the myriad races and persisted for a period of time. However, our era had already passed. In the end, we were still surrounded and killed by the myriad races led by the Chaos Beasts. Almost none of our clansmen were left. Our residence, the Chaos Sea, was also occupied by the Chaos Beasts, allowing them to complete the unification of the Chaos Sea. Our ancestors risked their lives to barely tear apart a portion of the residence and brought this portion of the residence here to take refuge. This is the origin of the Primal Chaos Ruins. Ning looked at her hometown and dejectedly revealed its origins. The generals and god spirits were enlightened. No wonder the Primal Chaos Ruins looked like a post-war ruin. Come on. Zhou Wen said. Yes, Your Majesty. The generals received the order respectfully and immediately flew towards the Primal Chaos Ruins. Just as they were about to approach the Primal Chaos Ruins, a cold shout suddenly sounded from afar. Where did this Lord faction that doesn't know the rules come from? Don't you know that this is the forbidden land of our Chaos God's race? The God Spirit who spoke also led a team of Chaos God's race soldiers to the front of the eternal worship. Zhou Wen and the others looked over. The other party was about 10 million kilometers long and golden all over. It looked like a dragon and a dog at the same time. The most shocking thing was that the other party actually emitted the aura of a Master God tier level. The guardian of the Primal Chaos Ruins was a Master God. It's a Master God tier elementary grade roaring towards the sky beast. The Blood Moon Sun had a solemn expression. Chaos God beasts like roaring towards the sky were rare even in the Chaos God's race. The roaring towards the sky's combat strength was also shocking even if they were of the same level. It even had the habit of eating dragon brains. In the myriad worlds, there was a saying that each roaring towards the sky could take on 3 dragons. It could be seen how shocking the other party's combat strength was. As for the other Chaos God's race beings behind the other party, there were about 100 of them. Among them, there were more than 10 true God-tier Chaos God's race beings. The weakest among them was a God Spirit at the low-tier deity-level elementary grade. Ning couldn't hold it in anymore, she looked at it coldly and spoke before Zhou Wen could. I only remember that this has been the territory of the Chaos Human race since ancient times. When did it become the territory of your Chaos Beast race? The roaring towards the sky glanced at Ning when it heard this. Then, its eyes suddenly shone with a blood-red light. I was wondering who had the guts to speak to me like that. So it's a remnant of the chaotic human race. So what if you escape? How dare you come back? The roaring towards the sky laughed sinisterly and opened its mouth to swallow Ning. His mouth was filled with sharp fangs as he appeared behind Ning mysteriously, intending to devour her whole. It could tell that Ning already had the strength of true God-tier advanced grade and was only a step away from becoming a Master God-tier. There was even a trace of the aura of will on her body. It was naturally unable to allow such a chaos human to continue advancing. That was why it had immediately killed the other party the moment it discovered its identity. However, at this moment, a faint voice sounded. You attacked this emperor's people in front of this emperor. Your dog face deserves a beating. Zhou Wen waved his hand casually. In the next second, a 9-colored palm appeared mysteriously in front of the roaring towards the sky. Its face was slapped ruthlessly and 2 dog teeth were also knocked out. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.